the mounted police I joined today is not the mounted police I joined. Right? Canada, the country I was born and grew up in, is not the country I remember. And I think there's just too many people, and particularly mounted police officers, that say, "Oh, Don, keep me out of this. I didn't cause this. I didn't create it. So why should I have to deal with it?" Well, my answer is that because when we stay silent, our consent is to what's wrong. Okay. It's like saying, well, we agree with it. Whatever you do, don't bring me into it, Don. Well, that's the very reason that these things are going to continue to happen. I have to say that what I want to talk about, I want to apologize to a lot of the public. The things I'm going to bring up are not just awful, they're criminal. And they're happening by people we trust, politicians, lawyers, judges, police officers, that have really broke a trust we have. They have with us. And many of them are not even being held accountable. Okay. Yet we can pick some, I guess I could say, schmuck, poor hardworking guy up in the field, and if he breaks the law, they're going to go after him to the T. But heaven forbid we talk about the who's who of society. And an example is when you look at my face, it's not age, it's wear and tear over issues we're involved in. And when you look at that, I have a pink beard and a pink mustache. And I used to do literacy in two different schools in Salmon Arm. And I found out how bad it was in school for children that were being bullied. This is an anti-bullying beard for children. It's supposed to be more of a hot pink, but I have black hair underneath on my face that grows. It's a natural thing. I have hair that's a little gray. So when you put hot pink on, it comes up kind of a harsh pink. Well, isn't bullying harsh? It's kind of how I sum it up. But we talk about it, but we're doing nothing about it. And I promised these children that I would wear this until bullying stopped. So I'll be cremated in it. Because of it, I have been called an effing faggot. I quit counting at 49. And that's who we are as a society. And there's older people men in suits, that lean into me and say, "What you do, Don, have breakfast down there at the wrong time of the month?" And when I straighten up, I just say, "No, it's an anti-bullying for your grandchildren." They turn a bigger red than my face is. And that's who we have in our society. We have people, we do nothing preparatory in this country. So in other words, we know things are going to happen, but we do nothing preventive to stop it. And BC is a perfect example. I think most provinces are. I'm not picking one province over the other. It's happening in all of them. And it's going to continue to happen until we do something about it. And like I said already, keep me out of it. Okay. And a good example of BC is the massive flooding. The BC government knew this was going to happen for 50 years. They had indications all the way along. And we let it go to the point where It took out roads, bridges, viaducts, train tracks, and caused a massive disruption for everybody that was traveling in the province. And what they don't want to do, it's called budgets. Gee whiz, we don't have to spend that money, Don. Heck, let's defund the police instead. You can't defund these guys and gals any further. From the time I joined, we have been shorthanded. You want to help the police and stop committing crime, then we wouldn't need all these police officers. But that's never going to happen, is it, public? And for members inside the force, if I ask the commissioner, the Rocated Mounted Police, to produce the sexual violence goes on inside the police force by other police officers, I think the percentage of the crime in that respect across Canada total would rise another 10 or 15%. Oh, heavens forbid, Don, we don't want to talk about that. And as a result, it just continues. There is no accountability for bad cops. A really super guy in British Columbia, his name is Jim Chu. And about 8 months ago, he came forward and said, we can't even fire a bad cop. And they can't. BC fired anywhere between 9 and 15 police officers because of bad conduct. But because of being short-staffed, they brought them all back. How does that happen?
Yeah.
It happens because they're police officers. And I don't want to go after you, the public, and call you out for, I think some of you don't know what's going on, but a lot of you do. And for those of you that don't, after about 2 or 3 podcasts, with the amount of documents I'm going to bring forward, you will know. And now I'm going to go after you because you're going to do nothing about it either. I live in a country that, to be quite honest, we do nothing about anything until it affects us personally. And now you're going to say, oh, aren't you going to help me? Oh, because you didn't help them. So why should they? I get into some subjects here that are going to be very emotional for me. And it's because I've been involved with their faces. Children that have been brutalized by people we trusted. And you don't have to handle the bodies, people. Police officers do. And when it involves police officers, they're going to cover it up. So who polices the police? Who polices politicians? Who polices lawyers? Who polices judges? Who polices the teachers? Until we have some level of honesty within ourselves. So in other words, if I don't have the capacity to be honest with myself, I will not be honest with you. And I just finished a 4-day divorce in British Columbia, 4 days when nobody else got on that docket. And that divorce is all about money. I had a super judge who was really fair. And I know that she runs her court with decency and honesty. But at the same time, she's part of a system that's broken. Now, the fact that I know she runs a good courtroom, what about the one she knows that doesn't? Does that lady have an obligation to step up and say, well, I'd like to change this? But it's no different than a police officer. Your career's over if you're going to do that. It's done. Okay. I can say to the public right now, which people say to me, well, Don, I know a good cop. Really? Ask him if he's got more or she's got more than 2 years of service. Then they know exactly what's going on. And in any type of organization, in order to get along, you have to go along. So with reference to a moral compass, we don't have one. Our technology is replaced every 2, 3, 4 days, and our moral compass went that way, the other way. So if I had to describe, and I do not say all police officers, all politicians, all judges. I don't. But just far too many of them are. And who's holding them accountable? No one. The mounted police could change if they change within themselves. So they're never going to do it public. During my service and up to now, the mounted police have had 36 to 41 years of studies, of doing research, but they put none of it in play. So nothing is going to happen. And I'm going to be forthright with you on all this. And if you don't want the truth public, turn this podcast off. And I hope someday I get to meet, sit down and talk with you. And if you don't want the truth, don't ask me the question. I can't help you by hiding things I know. Okay? My mother would say, son, if you can't help someone, don't hurt them. That's a pretty nice way to live, isn't it? My dad had said twice, my dad was a returned veteran of the Second World War. My twin brother and I and my sister and two others had my dad for roughly 14 years. And then he died as a police officer over a horrendous crime that happened that he couldn't deal with because the two lads in my high school got off. But he had gone through a war. If, like my mother said, if I can't help you, I'm not going to hurt you. And if I don't have all the answers. Hell, I don't even have the right questions, but I'm prepared to help you. But I can't help you if you don't want to help yourself. I have 3 books. I have added another one about 2 years ago in my life. And the first one is the good book. It's called the Bible. And if you don't care for it, then use the word God in good orderly direction. Or God, go on drinking. Or God, man's best friend spelled backwards. Whatever works, use it. Don't let somebody else tell you. Start making decisions in your own life. And on the divorce, I'm going to do my best not to jump in and out. My life didn't happen in a chronological order, and I don't think it's going to come out this way. My friends say, Don, if anybody can lose somebody, you do. You jump back and forth so fast. I think it's because I've lived this. And I'm having a hard time with knowing what's happening to different people, yet we don't want to help them. And if there will be young police officers say, oh, that old fart doesn't even know what he's talking about. Well, I'm 81 years of age, and I'm still quite active, healthy. There's some old injuries from when I was in service that are starting to crawl up on me. I have a slow-growing cancer. And understanding of my own body, when you're under stress, everything that's inside is going to grow more. So am I supposed to hide? Is everything out there supposed to happen to everybody else, but not me? That's not the way it works. I've been told 3 different times in my life that I could keep my legs, but I will never use them again. I spent 7.5 months on a striker bed and told I would never get out of that bed. And if you want to see how you go when you're 30 years of age and that happens to you, you sleep all day and then at nighttime you lay awake all night wallowing in your own self-pity until somebody that's worse off than you are starts to talk to you. And that's what helps us. The second book that has been really instrumental in bringing me about to face my own issues, and I guess I could insert this. I'm not afraid to tell you, public, who I am. Why are you afraid to tell me who you are? We have 3 kinds of lives, a public life and a private life. And we all know one another, but we have a secret of one too. That's the one we could get in trouble with, that you're having an affair on your wife or she's having an affair on you. And you're thinking, well, gee, I don't want people to know this. But you're the one carrying it around. Now, it's like trying to swim across the lake with 40 pounds of rocks on your back and you keep sinking below the water. Just get rid of the rocks. You'll come back to the surface. And it's also the reason that you won't stand up for somebody else. You won't testify in court when you could because you're afraid your own secret of life could be brought out. So why do you want to live like that? I don't. I think I did at one time. And the second book is called The Big Book for me. It's the book is called AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And it has 2 smaller books that have 12 steps and 12 traditions. The landlady, Roman Catholic in Claire's home, Anna May and Joe Purcell. Those people don't come any better. And she said to me one day, Don, I didn't know this was for alcoholics. Well, only one half of one steps talks about booze, alcohol, if you want. The rest talk about a living program. So does the Ten Commandments, but we kind of tossed that away a long time ago, didn't we? It's my dad said to me one day, he said it twice before he died. I was really young. I was allowed to get a chauffeur's license because I was a single working son. I was not quite 15, and I was able to get a driver's license because I was supporting the family. My twin brother had gone on, he was going from grade 13 into university. He ended up with an honors degree and 2 with distinction, spoke 3.5 languages. And I am not bilingual, but there are police officers right across Canada that speak 4 and 5 languages. But because one isn't French, they don't get a bonus. Come on, public, wake up. I'm trying to put this information out so you can have better police officers. Because if we leave it to them, they're not going to change. We've had 2 commissioners. One was an interim commissioner. Her name was Matheson. Because I understand the way the force worked, she was the first. And the Mounted Police are a paramilitary organization. They haven't really changed that. So for a woman to now step into the man's life, she's going to walk into living hell if she tries to do something different. And I think Bev did the best she could. Could she have done more? All of us could do more. But in order to hang on to our careers, we're not going to. I think part of a big problem with the public is that they've got a little mixed up. They think having a career is different than having a life, and they need to separate that. Somebody can say, well, that's easy for you to talk. Nothing bad has happened to you. Well, I've kept a deadly secret for a long time. And my dad was the chief constable, and I was sexually assaulted at age 7. Every word that man said and what he wanted me to do and what he was trying to do to me. But who's going to believe a little boy? And the year would be 1949. I was still playing Cowboys and Indians, so why would that happen to me? It did. And these type of offenses happen because of people we trust. It's not the guy out there working in the mud and the blood and the beer who built this country. It's the prissy little people in Ottawa that are wearing suits. We call them snakes in suits. And we don't want to upset, oh, that's the who's who. We can't talk about them. They're my friends. They donate to my company. They are in our churches. They're in our children's playgrounds. They're in hockey, basketball, any sport there is. And take a look at what's coming forward in the paper and what has. Who's committing these sexual offenses? People we're supposed to trust, who are in a position to be around children. And look how long these offenses occur. And when, when we attempt to really meter out real justice, oh, gee, let's not be too hard on them, okay? Oh, come on, don't give them that much time. If we had a few more people that were being sentenced to a good sentence, it would be a deterrent for people that are going to try it. But we don't have that. And we have too many bleeding hearts. But they're not going to do anything, again, as I've already said, until it happens to them. So Canada is a beautiful country. Most of us have never even traveled to the corners that are there. Billy Carrington has a song. I really like it. It's Currington. You have to see the video to appreciate it. And he said, God is great. Beer is good, and people are crazy. And people in this country are crazy. Do I call them dumb or stupid? No, I don't believe we have many of those. But we have a lot of Canadians that are doing dumb and stupid things. There's a difference. I do not want to be exempt from anything that someone else has to comply with. I have never asked for that, and I never wanted. There's several issues coming up in my life that I don't believe there's such a thing in this country as freedom of speech. You have to push for it, you have to earn it. And with the stroke of a pen, what freedoms we have can be taken away. And that's called a charter. And now we have to go back, hire a lawyer at a great cost to get it back. We already have it. Why was it taken away? Well, we can't have that old fossil talking about these things. We got to try and shut them up. And they have tried. I've been threatened. My family's been threatened. I've had fecal smeared over both door handles of my truck and my car. I've had other things smeared on the windshield. I've had 4 flat tires and twice. Well, they had the decency to leave the valve stems on the ground afterwards. We go after people that we shouldn't go after so hard. I have a comparison I like to talk about. Who's the biggest criminal? A father that steals a loaf of bread to feed his children? Or a businessman that has excessive money that can buy bread when you can't get it and sell it at 5 times the cost? I live in a society right now that people in British Columbia that are making $100,000 can't get into a home. And the landlord wants to raise the rent, so he's got an excuse why he put you out. Who's controlling this? Realtors know all about it. Are they doing anything? Of course not. They're making good money. And I think what's sad is that we have lost the capacity to care about others. And as a boy, I remember a community raised me up. So if I was out, we had sirens that go off at 9 o'clock at night. You had to be in the house. And if you were coming down the street and they'd say, "That's Don's boy." "No, Don, you get home." Okay. We don't do that anymore. And I don't feel, like I say, the majority of sexual acts are happening down where recidivists are, Skid Row drunks. They're happening where people are that we trust. They're like chameleons. They can get away with it. All you got to do is look at the paper, read the paper. And I'm in possession of probably 4,000 documents, I'd say minimal. And I'm happy now that I have the equipment I have because they're stored up in the air. Prior to that, I had storage areas because I was afraid that if I lost them, I couldn't talk about any of this. And I think the Mounted Police in particular are hoping that I don't have other copies. I have all kinds of copies. It's a sad thing for me to say that I don't trust the police. But I didn't say all of them. But the ones that are trying to be good, either they go along and they become part of it. I think we like to say, well, there's a few rotten apples. No, there's a hell of a lot more. And like, I don't believe in the F word. It's not going to come out of my mouth. I'm really upset when I see a child holding it up because you adults want to do it. Let your children be children. We have children that are becoming parents before they've had a chance to be children. So I am really tired of hearing people say to me, "Well, they're resilient, Don. They bounce back. They can handle it." Why? You think they're miniature adults? They don't handle it. And the ugliest thing that's going on right now, to me, is divorce custody access. It is really the legal destruction of the family. The court case I had, I don't want to talk in detail because I've requested the transcript, because you need to hear what went on in that courtroom. And I've been advised because I've requested the transcript. It was 4 days. And again, we had an exceptional judge. But that transcript is going to cost me $10,000. Now, why would I want it? Because I can give you what happened under oath. And you can say, well, this guy isn't BSing. He's really telling the truth. And if I didn't have a little extra money, which I hard earned, and I just got some release so I can go on and do different things. And so in about 2 months, I will have that. And there will be probably 2 or 3 podcasts dealing strictly with divorce, custody, and access. Right now, I could say mom can pick up the children and murder them different ways. Dad can do the same. And the mentality is, well, if I can't have them, nobody can have them. When you hire a divorce lawyer, that's exactly what's going to start happening. And so what are we doing about this? I'm encouraging people to make decisions in their own lives. In my insurance office right here in Lacombe, Alberta, they got a book, an application for joint divorce. Cost $49.90. And my second wife, I wondered why she was representing herself, because for pretty close to 5 years, she's had a lawyer. And we had agreed on a joint divorce application. And somewhere in about 2.5 months, things happened, but she went behind my back to talk to a lawyer. And shortly later, I found some documents in the house that says, re-consultation Donald Malcolm Dukes Matheson. I didn't go in there, but it was a bill to her. And I just said, why? I never got an explanation. I think if we'd have sat down and talked about it, it would have been much different. We both discussed that. So was it more money? I can't figure that one out. I'm not going to get into the other things that I know happened because it's in court evidence. And I want to be able to give it to you, the public, exactly what was said. I don't want to feel like I put weight on my side of it and not on hers. You're going to get the truth. And the reason I want to do that, as I said earlier, I'm not afraid to tell you who I am. Why are you afraid to tell me who you are? I have a hard time when a child says, I don't have a dad, or I don't have a mom. They have, but they don't see them. Excuse me. Because of the way it's treated in our courtroom. And what I want to emphasize to you really strong, divorce custody access is in an adversarial system that tries criminals. So which parent is the criminal? Which one's innocent? Which one's guilty? None of them. I can say that the criminal justice system, it's not fair. It's not even keeping up with the needs of Canadian people. And lawyers and judges can fix this. But do you think they're going to step up? It's like the mounted policeman that says, I got to do more. Well, your career's over if you're going to step up. And what I want to tell everybody, and I think some mounted policemen don't even know it, is that the commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police several years ago became a deputy minister of the House of Commons. Now, who do you think controls the mounted police? Well, some of us old guys have known that for a long time. And for that young fellow on the street that says, I'm going to try and do something, your career is over. And tell the upper ranks, the white shirts we call them, I'm going to have a special section on these guys and gals, believe me. I like to say the gals first because that's the way I brought up. But we have a minimum of probably 13 deputy commissioners that are female. I want to say to you, the public, when did you ever hear a high-ranking police officer, male or female, talk about the sexual violence towards our gals and our guys, or tell you the stats on the amount of men that are committing suicide? I didn't hear a sound, people, okay? And I don't expect I will. I know 2 families right here in Lacombe that stopped and talked to me that have female members that have recently died inside police forces in this province, and they've never been told why. I have a couple of photos here I'd like to show you. Like I say, my life, this wasn't happening in a chronological order, but in some of the future podcasts coming up, I have to have, if I don't believe in a God, I don't want to be here. And if I don't have humor, I don't want to be here. This is a photo, I think it's 2014 or 2012. And it's Mr. Mays did it, super guy. I usually pick up everything he does. And it talks about, I'll look into it. It's called sexual misconduct. Have a look at what's on the Mounties' eyes. It's a brassiere, okay? And there's booze on the table. And this was 2014, but believe me, it's been happening long before this. Has this changed to what's happening to our gals and guys? No, we've gotten worse, not better. So who's going to change it? A high-ranking female? Hell no. You know, if she wants to get higher, how much higher do you go? How many high-ranking police officers are waiting in line to become the commissioner? There's only 1 seat up there, and we don't have much integrity in that one either. There's a chap called Ray Benwari. I've known Ray for some time. He was the president of MPAC. It's called Mounted Police Professional Association of Canada. And they had asked me if I'd become an advocate for older fellows and gals. And I said I will. And I had days that I couldn't handle the phone calls we were getting. And this MPACT organization, their president was a sergeant called Brian Suve. And Brian Suve had a real close friend called Pete Merrifield. And I was receiving calls from young members that our union wasn't helping, but they were helping the who's who. And I had spoken to several female members because they called me and said, Don, Brian Suve, while he was in uniform, anywhere from 6 to 12 sexual harassment complaints disappeared. So who is this guy? And who's Pete Merrifield? Well, Pete Merrifield is a real close friend of Brian Suve's. So he jumped right on Pete Merrifield to help him. And Pete Merrifield, I have court transcripts on this if you want the production of them. And news people say, well, Don, where the hell did you get those? My answer will always be the same place you could have. They're there for public access, but you were told to leave it alone. Okay? I have a hard time trusting news people anymore, but some of them are in the same position as others. If they attempt to put something out where their editor or their owner has said, nope, you're not reporting that, because that's usually friends of the who's who that are supporting these. So they leave it alone. And I pay for 4 newspapers a day. That's $12 and some cents. And shortly I'm going to stop doing that, because this isn't going to change what I'm talking about. We're going to get worse. but I need hard copies so I can photocopy them, do another set, write on it, and do some more research. And I've got so that the Edmonton Journal and Calgary Herald at one time was this wide by that high and that thick. The ones today are that wide by that high and that thick. And when I picked them up, I say to the gal, well, gee, that's like 2-ply toilet paper. But not only is it that thin, it's the same content. Okay. Does it get a rise? Yeah, but there's a lot of truth to it. I have several documents here. I can't go through them all right now. This is called In Retreat. This is a book written what Pierre Elliott Trudeau did to the Canadian Armed Forces. He slaughtered them. They might as well be pulling toy wooden sailboats in their bathtub for the effect they have. And I do not default the Canadian military, women and men. And in any uniform, sexual violence is going on against female members. The hard fact is Justin Trudeau is now finishing up to kill the rest of the Canadian Armed Forces. You need to read this book. Go get it and read it. This is one of the cartoons I really like. This is a nurse that's leaning over about to put a fellow out under, she's going to anesthetize him. And she looks at him and it says on it, "Hey, doctor, isn't this your wife's lawyer?" The look on the patient's face tells you what he thinks is going to happen to him. I have to show you some of this because seriously, when we get on further, I don't think you're going to handle some of the things I'm going to tell you. So I try and put some humor into some of it because it's going to continue to happen. We are losing some of the best police officers because they can't deal with what's going on inside. And it's not from you, the public. It's from their own people that are doing nothing to help them. You know, you keep saying to me, "Fund the police." Please don't. Just stop committing some crimes. I think I already said that to you. Kind of cut down the wrongs you're doing. When I watch for protests, I hear people saying, "Well, I demand my rights, my rights, my rights." And when you get them, you're going to demand your wrongs now? Because that's how farcical this has become. Chris Christopherson wrote a song. It's called "Me and Bobby McGee." And he says in it, freedom's just another word. And it is. You haven't had to fight to get it like our armed forces have. The number of young men that sacrificed and women that sacrificed their lives so you could have some of these freedoms, and you abuse them. And I think some of them should be taken away from you until you appreciate the country you live in. This is one I really like because it kind of calls out the people it should. This is a picture of a man in a well-dressed suit and a well-dressed lady. They're sitting on a Chesterfield, and 2 glasses of wine are there. And he says, "Marry me, and I'll go straight. No more lying and cheating, no more crime. I promise I'll totally quit politics." You think that's not true? Like I said, our first interim commissioner was a lady called Bev Busson, and she is a super gal. And she became the interim commissioner. She had the opportunity to do more. She's now in the Senate. Is that a reward for being quiet? I like Bev. I really do. She came up through the ranks when it was hard for females to even survive in her outfit. But somewhere along the road, did she sacrifice her soul? I don't know. That's something you need to ask her. She's in the Senate. You can write and ask her. Delays in justice system, a crisis situation. This is 15 years old. And if you think delays were bad back then, how about now? And I'm from Ontario, and about a month and a half ago, I decided to go home to see my sisters and other family relatives. And I went up to Ripley. It's where my mom and my dad and my twin brother were buried. And I go about every 10 years and I clean out the headstones, and I have a kit to do it with. And it's emotional. My dad should still be alive. Mom lived to 99 years. And my mother was a Bernardo child, a home child. And most of you don't even know what I'm talking about. So you live in this country. Why don't you know about your own country? Excuse me. They were children that were rounded up in Great Britain. They called them the scourge of the streets. My grandmother was quite wealthy. And when my grandfather died, she started drinking. And she couldn't handle all the children. They had 4 brothers. So most of the girls were shipped to Canada to do child labor. You can look those books up. No child would be allowed to do that kind of work today. My mother was 11 when they shipped her over. She had a steamer trunk, and my Aunt Avis was 8. And some of these children were never seen again. And the stories, you need to read them. You think you have it hard today? Read their stories. And the number of Bernardo children, dependents right now, number over 5 million in Canada. And I think more of them are learning about their moms and dads and grandparents. But the majority of them, and you people, you don't know a damn thing about them. And yet you whine and cry about things that you have to deal with. Do I not know that some of you can't afford an apartment, a rent, food, heat, hydro? But what are we doing about it? Okay, I do my own shopping now. And if a product is 3 for $9, and one of that product really is off, you'll come back another week later and that product is now $4 itself. That's good business, but you're paying for it. Where are you getting the money? I don't have a problem for myself. I never believed in credit cards. I got behind and had to pay a large amount. I can't get on a plane without a credit card. I can't buy food on the plane without a credit card. I can't rent a car without a credit card. And when I watch people in the lineup buying things, they got 6 or 7 credit cards. You got to pay for that eventually. And I guess I tried to live with them. If I didn't have them in my pocket, I can't buy it. I'm not going to criticize or judge how you do your life. But I kind of want to ask you to help others that aren't as fortunate as you are. I have a couple of nephews, my twin brother's boys. At age 7, I was molested. 6 years later, my twin brother and I were violently raped. So please don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. I've carried that for a lot of years, and now I'm going to come forward with it. And I remember every word that was said to me in the physical act that happened. When this man let me out of my car, his car at Tweed, Ontario, I was living in a home my mom and dad rented from a man called Joe Allure. And right across the street, a vacant lot, and right down into the Moira River. Runs right through Napanee. Some of the finest bass pickerel fishing there is. But it was also a river we swam in. And when I got out of that vehicle, a Polish lady that does laundry for a lot of people, including mom when mom was working, I bled for 2 days. But didn't understand what happened. So again, don't try and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyways, what I was trying to do was to get into the river because this hurt and I didn't know why it hurt so bad. So I got into the river. I had my clothes on, whatever I came from this man's house on Stucco Lake. And my twin brother, I know, had been sexually and raped by this man a couple of other times. And that man's name is Jack Vance. His son is Jonathan Vance. You remember this guy? The guy we just drummed out of the Canadian military in charge? The apple didn't fall too far from the tree, did it? And I learned in history from other senior officers how many other children he raped. But why did the military keep it quiet? Why did the Mounties keep it quiet? Okay. That's my twin brother took his life over it. Okay. I didn't. But it changed me. No. Did I suffer emotionally? I didn't really understand what happened. But I chose a path of police work. And on that path, you would think after a while that I could get even. That's not what I'm about. If I, as a police officer, put a hand on a guy because I have a personal problem, no matter what that man's charged with, he's got off. And I'm not going to talk to you about all the things that happen in the police force, because trust me, you can't handle it. You know, you left that up to me and other police officers. But you don't want to know about it. And until you do, you might be able to help the Mounties change or other police forces. And as I say to you, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police is the national police force. But we have over 300 other police forces in Canada. I said 300. And I think if you read the paper, you're going to realize that what's happening in the Mounted Police is happening in those police forces. And what are we doing about it? Oh, just hire a lawyer. I mean, this guy's got a silver spoon in his mouth. He's not going to have you say what happens. He's going to tell you what to say. And you're going to say, that's not what I told you. He doesn't care about you. He cares about the dollar that's there. So I have a card that if you want to know a little bit about me, is go up on a website called wakeupcanada.info. And on that card, you will see DMD Don Matheson, former RCMP officer. I need these up close. Website, wakeupcanada.info. Email dmd.matheson16@gmail.com. Facebook, Wake Up Canada. Phone 250-515-1060. The other side of that card, when it came down to lawyers, it said bottom feeders, blood-sucking leeches. Well, they pretty much are, but not all of them. So the line I use now is lawyers. The only people that profit from divorce, custody, and access. And what's been added to the card is no more non-disclosure agreements. They're called NDAs. So it doesn't matter whether it's a male policeman or female. It's predominantly happening to female police officers. If they decide to come forward which they do. And believe me, it is not easy for a female police officer to come forward in the society I live in, and especially within the police forces of the Canadian military. We've been hiding sexual violence for years. And to add worse onto their stories, when they investigated these gals, some of the men that committed the offenses against them brought the documents for them to have to sign. So not only do we hurt them once, we repeat it over and over, and they have to go before male people that know what happened and did cause it. Underneath that line, it says on NDAs, real name gag orders used to cover up truth, not expose it. And what my shirt says is justice for 7,000 female police officers. And it says all lives matter, we all bleed red. I have shirts that say politically incorrect with an attitude. Well, politicians don't like that one, but it's true. I also have all lives matter, we all bleed red. And the other church say our children have only one childhood. And the rest you know by what's on the website. And will I back that up? You bet I will. This is a good example of where we're at. This was old, 2010. So you get how far back it was? Sex cop still on payroll. Suspended Mountie, Trent Richards still receiving full pay, at least $265,000 so far, since he was suspended and later ordered to resign for having on-duty sex with women he met on the internet. He is one of 16 BC Mounties on paid suspension for alleged misconduct. We have members that are pensioning out on this kind of thing. 12 years of it. You're paying for it, public. And right now, excuse me, we are at close to $4 billion in paying out sexual violence suits against men, mostly women that just want to do their job. And we do nothing about it. But I think this might annoy you people because you're paying this $4 billion, not the mounted police. It's coming from you, the taxpayer. So if that doesn't move you off your bottom, I don't know what will. This is a beautiful young lady. Her name is Carolina Farrell. She's a staff sergeant. Her lawyer sent me some documents that allowed me to get, if you try for a file number in British Columbia or even here, there's probably only 4 circuits. So you can go on site and find a lot of these documents. In Ontario, there's probably 200 areas. And if you don't have the docket number, you're probably not going to get it. But you can pay to have these transcripts. They're not in camera. And I have about 9 of them of women that have settled. And I'm going to introduce some of them. And you're going to get nauseated over what these gals had to go through. And in one case, 18 male members knew about it, but not one would support her. Okay. This was after 3 decades of, she was on the musical ride. And one of our commissioners would never let a story come out because the musical ride was his pet peeve. Okay. It doesn't matter about the riders on it. You need to know about this stuff. And for me, I have a real worry for you and your children. I don't say all police officers, but I think most of you have read the papers or heard an article when you hear a Mountie say, or a city police officer, "Oh, I feared for my life, so I shot her or shot him." What, 14 times? 7 times? 9 times? These guys have crossed pistols and crossed rifles, and some of them have crowns, which means perfect scores or close. I wore them as well. It's better than having a bare sleeve. But maybe in the future, we should have a heart in a circle and a brain in a circle. And how about a backbone in a circle? I think that's what the public would like to see. I have a hard time because locally right here, just a short while ago, I hadn't been here very long. I've been here since April. But I'm back in an area where 62 and a half years ago, I was a police officer. The population of Red Deer was 13. There was 11 of us. I'm not upset about, but I have a hard time driving around. I've been to 13 places I've been stationed. And we're not getting better. We're getting worse. We're putting up massive structures. The ones we could maintain, we don't. Knox Presbyterian Church in Red Deer, I was on the board of managers. Homeless people urinate against it. They draw circles around it. During my time, I remember when the front doors were never locked. And there was a coin box in the vestibule inside. And that church was not locked. Look where we are today. How many of you talk to somebody that's on the street? I do it often. And I've met some super nice children that are on their own on the street. And I guess what I'd like to say that there's probably in Canada right now 1 million children in good homes that are crying alone. And next year there's going to be 1 million more on the street by themselves. I have my twin brothers, boys. I'm in touch with them one every Wednesday night, which I just remembered. This is the night we talk. My nephew will understand that. I meant to call him this afternoon. But he said to me over 9 months ago, "What's the fastest growing industry, Uncle Don?" And this lad is really sharp. He follows a lot of things. In fact, I think he's the one that keeps our whole family up on top of things. And I laughed and I said, "Lawyers." And he said, "No, Uncle Don, food banks." And the food banks on the island are now needing 50% more than a year ago. That is a sad commentary on us as a society. Most of these things are happening because we as a society are doing nothing about it. Oh, keep me out of it, whatever you do. Well, we can't keep doing this. I live in Lacombe on a street. The home I'm in belongs to my son. A good lad, a really good lad. And he didn't have the best upbringing either. And I have 2 grandchildren that when the oldest one walks by my house, which is usually every day, and I'm cheering at sports now. On my farm, I had a gorgeous farm, but I didn't have that happening in my life. And do I miss it? Not now, because I'm doing it. And a real reward, I don't fault seniors that go to coffee and they do it every day. Some of the richest rewards we have is just watch a grandchild with a grandfather. And the number of children that are in school that don't have that. You could get cleared to do reading, literacy for those children. And you would add a real dimension to their lives, but they'll add a big one to yours too. So why don't we do it? I am not going to sit around for the rest of my life. I'm just a little too active. I've been blessed with not being dead. I'm not supposed to be here. Several times I shouldn't be here. And one was a bear incident just west of here. When I'm doing things daily now, I forget that I was stationed in Alberta through all my service. And I've been to 13 of the places I was stationed. I think I already said that. And I'm saddened by what I see. We don't care about one another anymore. Right now, the biggest issue that Mounties that I trust talking to say, Don, get rid of that damn NPF, National Police Force. It's the new union for our guys. They don't give a damn about their own people, and they're not trying to help them. And I can just hear them now. Oh, yeah, we're going to shut this guy down. Give it a go. People better than you have tried it. And if somebody, because I forthright criticize a system, gets upset, then something is wrong with that system if you can't take constructive criticism. Now I want to know what you're hiding. Okay. The street I'm on, there are young, middle-aged, and older people on it. And what I watch daily is people just trying to survive. And I like to say that people that built this country, that worked with their hands, and if I can't do that sometime in the day, I have to be outside. Okay. And the house I'm in, it's a nice house. It's built in 1926, but it hasn't been maintained. Okay. And I'm going to pay the cost to maintain it because of where I live and what I'm enjoying now. Because of a settlement, I have that. Okay. I could buy it, but I don't want to own a home because then that keeps me here all the time. But when I look around compared to what I had as a boy, our children today don't have the enjoyment that I had as a child. And the biggest issue I want to stand up is for our children, okay? Yours and mine. And you need to see what's happening to these children. And what I'd like you to be able to do is sit down on the backs of your heels when you're talking to a small child and have a look through their eyes. You just might see the world the way they have to see it. They are the future of this country. And frankly, with what I'm watching, they don't have a hell of a chance. And they deserve better. Okay? I covered ground that covered 16 reservations. And don't tell me I don't know about the Indians. I have quite a history with them. 5 Native people put that sign up that's on my farm. That's it. Okay? And because there was a bylaw said that they said it was too big. Political people said, you know why they want it down, Don. Okay? And Judge Groves from Kamloops said, Don, if you do this under the charter, you will win this. Well, an issue came along, and there was a forced sale of my farm. Excuse me. I thought I would die on that property, but things are changing around. They're so drastic. The best neighbor I have is selling his farm. There are things happening with the land, that the logging's clearing everything out. Drainage doesn't happen in the lake property. So I think sometimes we end up where we're supposed to be. We may not like it, but have a look around and see what other people have to live with. I am fortunate to have met the people I have in my life, good, bad, and indifferent. And those that are bad have taught me what I don't want to be like. Okay. But do they still have a good side? You know, forgiveness requires 2 people, not one. And I think if some of us knew what happens to younger people in prison, we've got to find a better way to help them. And this lady could have done more. Her name is Beverly McLaughlin. She was really the first strong Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada. I'm not going to go into personal comments right now about her, but she is now writing different books. They're kind of mystery books. I don't think she's paid for them. I think she donates it. But with the talent and education, this lady, she came out of Pincher Creek, another area where I was stationed. She could write a book about what's wrong with our justice system. Why doesn't she? Why do you have to find out how bad it is only when you have to use it? And that's the worst time to have to find out. Because I'm going to say to you right now, it's not a question of justice in Canada anymore. It's how much justice you can afford. And a good example would be my second wife. When she decided to drop the joint divorce, I wondered why she had her lawyer wasn't in court the 4 days we just finished, Sam and Arm. And again, I'm not going to go into the details until I have the words that were said. I have a pretty good idea. I have a half decent memory. Sometimes I wish I didn't have. And she had got, like, they were demanding. I was being hounded to get a lawyer. And the biggest reason for that is they can't deal with someone that won't go along with the system. I didn't crowd it. I didn't corrupt it. They already had. But I wouldn't concede to what they wanted me to do if I was. And lawyers will do that. I don't call lawyers what I said in the first card. I call them surfers. They're looking for the next biggest wave and they're going to ride it right out to the end. And Patricia, my second wife, I'm now legally divorced. It took 5.5 years and it was about money. But in all honesty, there was 30 good years in that marriage. It wasn't all bad. And when you bring a lawyer in, forget about the niceties. They're going to pit you against the other person. We just forget about things that really were good. And she had to say, because I was questioning why she doesn't have one. And her people, plus judges, said, Mr. Matheson, you need to get a lawyer. And I said to one judge, why is it complicated? Why is telling the truth complicated? Well, you're not going to get an answer. Anyway, she got a bill for $61,000. And in order to finish the 4 days in court, Kylie Wallman from Nixon and Wenger in Vernon wanted another $50,000. Yet right here in Lacombe, you can get a kit for $49.90 to do it yourselves. So try and care about each other enough. Stop hurting the children, please. They have only one childhood. Please don't deny dad or mom visitation. There are too many fatherless and motherless out there right now, and they're not going to make it. And I'm tired of hearing you, so-called experts, saying, oh, no, they're resilient. No, they're not. I talk to adults that were bullied. They're still having a hard time because they recall what happened to them. I grew up in a time where we said sticks and stones will break your bones, but names will never hurt you. Well, it's the opposite. Bones heal. What happens to you inside destroys you. You don't get over some of those emotions. Your whole life takes on a different style. We judge our children today in class circles they're in. The ones that have the good clothes, the clothes they wear. I am one of the founding members of the Brain Injury Association of Canada. I suffered a real serious head injury in a sport. I lost roughly 11 years of my life. I didn't know who my wife was, my son was, and it took time for all this to come back. I became a very angry person. I had words coming out of my mouth that I don't use. And I got some professional help and a Dr. Samurai, who does all our serial killers. I met him in Kelowna, and he had been renovating an old home. He's a super guy. And the old homes come down the stairs, they widen at the bottom and they round. And he was moving some construction material and he fell backwards. And he was dealing with the same thing I was. And the brain is really intricate because something kept saying to me, Don, you've done this before. You can do it again. Yeah, I was up on a roof and I wasn't supposed to be up there. And I came off it, not down the ladder, but off the roof. The system still fights you inside. But a brain injury is hidden. You don't see it. And we are so far behind in Canada with dealing with it. We're trying a little more. I was at a conference down south when a young lady from Kent, Ontario, after she heard me talk, said, would you be interested in coming to the founding meeting in Pierrefonds, Montreal? And I said, yes, my home's in Kingston. And at that time, I was the president of the Brain Injury Association in the rural area of Salmon Arm. We're not helping them the way we could. We make fun of them because you can't see the injury. I had a Crown prosecutor, this young girl, a beautiful young girl. She was only 15. She had the body of a 30-year-old woman. She had Down syndrome. This happened right here in Red Deer. I keep forgetting most of my police work was in this area. And this Crown prosecutor said, well, she's a mongoloid. That's the closest I've ever closed this up and wanted to punch a man in the face. Anyways, he refused to prosecute it. And there were two of us involved in the investigation. I was the senior guy at the time. So we decided to go talk to the mother because the mother didn't understand why they weren't proceeding. And we were sitting talking to her. She was a car fanatic. This gal could describe any car that was being reconstructed. So we sat with her for a while, and then she took us to where she'd been raped by 3 guys here from Red Deer. She described that car to a T. So we knew who owned it, and we knew who his friends were. So we pushed for the prosecution, and all 3 of them got convicted. Why do we not help the lesser person? Because Crown prosecutors and lawyers want percentage of convictions. They want to build a nice press. And we're going to move on to 2 others because I want to tell you what's coming. There's a beautiful young lady, and her name was Arlene Westervelt. She was a registered nurse. And she was married to a Bert Westervelt. And they, after some delay in the amount of police, they finally decided to redo an investigation. And that disappeared. And it disappeared because Berticus Westervelt had a close association with the superintendent of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. In fact, I interviewed a man in Edmonton that taught them how to move drugs and set up the equipment in Lake Country. Justice for Arlene. But none of this evidence has come forward in court. And when they found out that there was a superintendent in charge, oh boy, here goes the investigation. And then The coroner's office decided to cover it up. Then the Crown prosecutors decided to cover it up. I had made an application as a civilian because of my knowledge of some of the police work and what I can do as a civilian. So I laid 5 criminal charges to the people that covered it up. One of them was the Deputy Commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in British Columbia, Dwayne MacDonald. The other one was, surprise, surprise, the Premier, David Eby, who was the Attorney General at the time that knew all about this. The other one was Peter Duke, the Deputy Attorney General. And I asked for an outside police force to investigate it. Never got it. I laid these criminal informations, and then a short while ago, they all got withdrawn, all got dismissed. I had requested a transcript, and when it's in camera, the news people can't be there, and if they are, they can't talk about it. It's worse than Houdini being in a safe with chains around him. I will produce that document that I have, and the judge I had to go before to get it. And everybody said, "You're not getting it done." I got it. I will be charged with a contempt of court if I produce that file I have. I had never planned this, but sometime in the new year, I'm going public with this document. It shows how bad this was covered up. In all my service and my civilian life, I have never seen something this bad and at the levels it was at get covered up. Do I want to do time? I don't think I'm going to do a lot because they're going to have to justify it. Excuse me. And in order to have something in camera, it has to be the protection of children, either sex issues, sex trafficking. We have to protect these children. The second one is undercover police officers that a public trial would expose who they are. So their lives are at risk. And the third one is the secrecy, integrity of our federal government. None of those things applied to this case. So how did it get put in camera? And I will be going public on this a little later, because a young lady died. No, she was murdered. Arlene Westervelt. And some mounted police officers have gotten off scot-free. And I have all the documents I need to lay another prosecution. There's no limitation of time on these charges. There's no limitation of time on rape. 20 years from now, it can be laid. And you're seeing old cases where this is happening. But when it involves people up here, it's gone. Well, it hasn't gone. There's an old guy called Don Matheson that is going to let this go. If our members want to cover up crimes involving them, that's bad enough. But when you want to cause problems for civilians, and I'm around, it's not going by. I have an obligation to stand up to this. On my next podcast, I'm going to play a tape. It's 8.5 minutes. And it was at an AGM, annual general meeting of the Mounted Police Veterans Association in Salmon Arm, British Columbia. There were over 65 members in attendance. And I had decided I can't stay quiet on this stuff anymore. So I spoke to our vets. I partially broke down during it. But you're going to hear that tape. And you're going to find out our Veterans Association are doing nothing about this. They don't have a career to protect, but they're going to protect the image of an outfit that doesn't have one anymore. For a long time, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police of today are riding on the iconic history of the Northwest Mounted Police. How much longer are we going to do that? I'm not knocking all members. We have so many dedicated female and police officers that are trying to do the best they can with where they're at. And most of them are not going to be allowed to do it. You need to know the pressure they're under in working to protect you, the public. But you don't give a damn because it hasn't affected you. And I want to protect these gals and the guys. If you were to ask the Commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, how many women have been sexually violated or raped by other members? Not vaginally, but anally. Well, we don't keep track. How many members have committed suicide that have massive PTSD? Well, we don't keep track of that. You damn right they do. But they're not going to let you have it. So what I'm going to give you permission to ask for my entire police file. We call it a jacket, whatever you want to. I give you permission, any one of you out there, to ask, and you have my approval to get my entire history. Good luck with that, because I can't even get it. Because what's on my file is things that they tried to cover up. You need to understand the system that is hurting the police officers that are trying to help you. But you don't give a damn. We are losing some of the finest police officers that we have. When I was in Ottawa here with Ray Benoit, Ray lives in Ajax, and he was the president of MPPIC, Mounted Police Professional Association of Canada. And I'm going to tell you how NPF got in. And it's going to make you sick to your stomach. It was all about politics. Had nothing to do with helping the guys and gals in the field. So when are you going to help, public? These are people that are trying to help you. And what I want to show you is the stress that they're under in order to carry out that duty, that job. I like to call it a career, because I think a job is something like just over broke, proper letters. There is no accountability right now for police officers, none. Okay? I went through the time. I can produce documents in 1941. I got further back than that. When two black men, well, then they were called Negroes, applied to get into the force. And I have a letter direct from Ottawa that says, well, I think when you do their application, we can find a way that we don't have to hire them. That attitude has existed for a long time. You have a juvenile twit called Justin Trudeau. And I'm hoping that Pierre Poilievre, or who's ever in opposition, stops. That ship he's in is already sunk. So get off it. Canadians are tired of you playing tit for tat. Step up and do something for the Canadian people. They need you right now. I don't care who gets in Parliament. I want somebody that does something for the good of Canadians, not for themselves. And politics is self-serving. And if you don't know that, you better learn it. They make meaningful promises when they are running and want to get in. But they know at the time that they're empty. They're not going to fulfill them. Why don't you ask Trudeau how many promises he's completed? Maybe 3? I'm just asking you to find out what's really going on, and I'm going to do my best to tell you. I'm not just going to tell you, I'm going to produce the documents. They're going to make you sick. Do we have a good court system? No, I think I've already touched on that. we have one. It's the best we've got right now, but it's not good enough. It's not helping the needs of Canadians. And the people that are inside this system are not coming forth to change it. So what happens to you and I? We have to get, excuse me, if the female nurses stood up for the female Mounties, the female Mounties stood up for the female teachers, nurses, people that work in the beverage association, work in the tourist industry. That's called united we stand, but divided we fall. And governments know that right from the beginning. The more we can divide each other amongst each other. And when I said that to you, I want to, people that are very learned, it's not a main thing with me, but between means two or less. Amongst means three or more. Can you please get that right when you're talking about it? And one that I have, it's a bit of a burr under my butt. Damn is not my God's surname. Okay? And I think I told you what I've been called wearing this. Does it bother me? It did for a while. But to sum it up, and I'm going to hit you with this, that's the society I live in. So are we all happy with that? Well, if you have, you've accepted second best. I get involved in this issues because I want to help you. I would like to make your life a little better. And I have to say the reason I'm doing it because my parents brought me up to do that. And so do a lot of, because say I didn't work with good police officers, I work with great police officers. And when I reel out the volume of what's happening inside the force, I'm a person that likes to keep records. I am missing a photo of Arlene Westervelt. It's in boxes in my house here. I thought it was with these two. And Arlene Westervelt was found in 30 feet of water, 30 feet off the shore. And the dive team, 2 members, said, it's really lucky because her clothes caught on some of the rocks. Because just a short ways away, she was in a 400-foot drop. Berticus Westervelt had a depth finder. But the Mounted Police don't want to talk about the evidence. They want it to disappear. Well, it's not going to disappear. And if I have to do time for whatever number of days to bring the documents I now have, I kind of breach a trust in camera. But in camera is something somebody decides, and it doesn't qualify her in her trial. And there are 24 witnesses can attest to the violence that Bert Westervelt does. But all of a sudden, whoosh, it all disappeared. A document that I filed with 74 pages on it with these witnesses just disappeared. It didn't come from the Crown. It came from the organized crime unit of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Why are they covering it up? I like to think that you people don't know about all this. And for the female high-ranking officers, we just went through a time, it was called a pandemic. And honestly, it had nothing to do with the pandemic. It's how we didn't deal with it. And I can remember being on an airplane years ago with Air Canada, and there was a sign up in front of the seat ahead of me, and it says, "No smoking beyond this point." Who told to smoke that? That smoke went right through the aircraft. That smoke went right through the international airport in Toronto when you had to follow red arrows if you were smoking. Somebody forgot to tell the smoke that it couldn't go around there. That's how the stupidity of stopping people. If the research had been there, I complied with it. I'm old. I can get a chest cold. I don't want to put a mask on because now I'm breathing my own breath. That's going to make me sick. But we didn't know the truth, and we acted on it. We stopped people from going to church. We stopped ministers from giving the good word. 59,000 seniors died in seniors' homes because of poor ventilation. 59,000. Please remember that. Sons and daughters, grandchildren that had their hands up to the windows. Those people on the other side are seniors. Who's saying anything about this? Our health people got it wrong. Our police had it wrong by enforcing it. But what you don't understand is that when a police officer is given an order, if he defies it, his career's over. But some of them could have stood up. I think the word is hold the line. And the trucking convoy we had, when 3 or 4 women are talking with a high-pitched voice, they don't mean it. But if they're talking all together, my head injury still comes back sometimes. And I don't take medication. I just leave the room. Walk about 10 feet outside, and it's gone. I was on medication for a long time, and I didn't even know who the hell I was. And I finally said, why am I taking this? Well, that's because what your doctor doles out. I have 2 of the finest doctors looking after me for my health, or maybe I wouldn't be here. So I like to think I'm here for a reason. I think God has a purpose for all of us. So I want to say to you, the public, why are you here? And what is your purpose? To hide, to cover up, to say, keep me out of it? Doesn't involve me, Don. The next time you think it doesn't, get back down on the back of your heels. I can still do that quite often. And a lot of times I had spurs on the back of my boots, and I was still sitting on them. And I saw the world through the eyes of children. And what do they have? What do our children of today have to look forward to? You know, there's a saying out there that you can look after yourself and do well, but how about you look after others that don't have the opportunities you and I have? You know, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. When I started getting involved in uniform, it was around I saw the change coming in the force around 1968. And by 1969, we had NCOs that could give you every letter and number on a piece of paper in our office. But they didn't know how to handle personnel. And all the way along, it's gotten worse, not better. We get people that are promoted that should never be promoted. Our federal government says, wow, we got equal number of women and men. That's not the standard I want to see. If we have 39 natives that pass the exams and they're the best qualified, then I want them in that position. If there's 22 gay people, I want them in that position. That's not the way we promote in the mounted police. And as I said, I'm going to let you know what the hell is going on in our police forces. And in a few more podcasts, I'm never going to run out of the material I have right now. And you're going to get a lot of it, but I'm not going to go into the details of deaths because you can't handle it. This is called the fist. That fist in a 9-hour period while I was stationed in Claresholm, knocked on the doors of farmhouses to tell the family inside, a loved one, that they weren't coming home. Have you done that? No, you haven't. Do you have empathy for the people that are in that home? You don't know them, so you don't care. That's where I live today in the society. As I said, I'm quite a happy guy. I love fishing, and I know that my God does not deduct from my life the hours I spend fishing. My dad used to say to me, sit down and listen when you're out there, son. A lot of you people out there right now, you're dealing with an investigation that has no closure. And a real good investigation, if there are no leads, those leads will come from you on the street. But if you don't care for the police, you're not going to help them. But they're going to help you. Uniform members are not, the boots are not always on the ground. You see something that you think is not right, tell us. Give them something to work on. Now you'll find out how qualified they are. Never mind all the stuff you read in the paper. I think there's enough of us that are going to try and look after that part. My son was caught. All right. So another case I want to talk about, because you're going to get a couple of hours on this one, is a beautiful young lady called Heather Gray. I'm sorry that I don't have Arlene Westervelt. That's Heather Gray. She's alive, but she's lucky to be alive. She's a former Moose Jaw City police officer that was so honest and caring that Regina said, we want her here. What happened to her should not happen to any police officer. And in the next podcast, I'm going to hold up 10 of these pictures, not hers, but the people that caused her violence, her sexual assault, and that have also covered up this guy. What does a rapist look like? Could it be Evan Bray of Regina Police Service? He stepped down in June. Oh, said it's time I should retire. 7 different people of the highest rank in the province, including Scott Moe, the current. Brad Wall has known about this guy for 17 years. This guy, Evan Bray, raped his own daughter's babysitter. Now, the wife has protection as long as she's the wife. She doesn't have to testify. She's protected. She's not the wife anymore. There's another wife. I'd done enough research on the second wife. She's a lovely lady. But if she had known that Evan Bray raped a babysitter, she would never have married him. But I'm going to introduce the people that have covered this up, and they are in the highest of ranks of the legislative building in Regina. From my farm, it was 1,300 kilometers one way. I went there 3 times to do the investigation, and nothing happened. Even the news people they disappear. Well, it is not going to disappear. And this is the picture of a young Sikh lady that 2 senior Mounties were having sex with. This is her graduation picture. Look at it. And they both were having sex with her. And she approached them because she was pregnant, but she didn't know it was a tubal ligation. So it wasn't going to come. She took her life last year. There was one flash in the paper, and then it's been hidden. When is she going to get justice? When is her family going to get justice? This is only the touch of the bucket. There's volumes of this. And I'm going to produce these photographs. And if you don't want to talk about it, I'm going to start calling you out. And again, why are you here? What is your purpose? Timeline. Ricky, timeline.
We're about an hour and 45 into it.
25?
An hour and 45.
That's what we've had already?
Yeah.
So, what I want to say to you people, some of the other stories I will break because they involve small children. They involve high political people. And I'm not going to let these guys walk away. Okay? I have a purpose. Okay? Like my dad said to me, all saints have a past, all sinners have a future. But spare me the criticism of those who have never been caught. And I don't want to see any good female police leave, because I'm telling you, we're losing some of the best police officers we have. And on my trip to Ottawa with Ray Bernard, we confronted the force. It took us an hour and some minutes to get a white shirt to come down and talk to us. And she said to me, "Oh, I love your shirt. It's one of the ones I have on." Because other people were standing there, I will not call her out. That's shaming someone. But if she'd been by herself, I would have said, "So what are you doing about it?" They're doing nothing. And they're going to continue to do nothing. And our new commissioner, well, he's the commissioner for a 2-year term, but he's been in the Mounted Police for 37 years. So when you say you have a good police officer, ask him about what he's doing. And the only reason this continues is because good cops are doing nothing about this. Why not? Okay? Next time it's your child that gets shot in Red Deer, 33-year-old young fellow that was having some mental issues. I stepped into this. I'm going to step into another one. Because you're getting an answer, well, it's complicated. Well, the force was necessary. You got one just recent that had, 14 members? Guy with a bow and arrow? And it just came in the Red Deer Advocate. And I'm not going to let this one go. Because this is the same answer you're getting for all the deaths of your children. So when do we deal with it? When do we hold police officers accountable? I want good police officers, and we're not getting them. And on my house that I rent belongs to my son, the sign is above the ones outside. I support the police, but only the good ones. And I'm going to do everything I can to get what's in there causing the problems out. And believe me, I have been threatened. I have been intimidated. But it's nobody that walks up to him and says, "Don, can I talk to you? And here's what I have to say about you." I get an anonymous phone call and a threat. The first two were women. And the third one was a sergeant. And I have some pretty good equipment. And I called him back about 12 minutes later, and he said, "How did you get this number?" And I said, "Do you think you're the only one, Sarge, that has this equipment? Why should a civilian have to have this kind of equipment in his home?" Come on, public, you going to answer me? I would appreciate your input. I don't want to know that you got a ticket. I want to know the deportment of the police officers that stopped you. Too much is happening to you that shouldn't happen. And I want these men and women the hell out of the force. And what I want to say to you right now is thank you for listening. Have somebody with you on some of the ones that are coming up because they're really emotional. And I apologize to the people that are going through this emotion, because I'm going to be bringing up emotion that hasn't settled for you. And what I want to say to you is good health, Much happiness to you and yours. Stay well. That's not a request, that's an order. And I would like to say that I'm hoping to go up within 2 weeks on some other information. And there's a lot of politicians involved in this one. But I want to complete and help justice for Arlene. And I want justice for Heather Gray. Are you going to help? How does Regina hide the rape of a babysitter by the chief of police and nothing happens? And I'm going to give you the faces of the people that have covered this up. And like Brad Wall, a former premier, he's known about this for 17 years. Murray Mandrick, a reporter, I spoke to him. Oh, heavens, Don, why can't we just talk man to man? Here comes another cover up. Well, I'm not going to let this happen. Why do I want to get involved? Because you don't. Because if you did, I might not have to do all this. But that's the way I was brought up. So take care. The very best. We'll see you in 2 weeks.